What is simulation as a service? Let's talk about Onscale. Okay, Onscale. Let's talk about who they are, what the solution is, and what it can do, and kind of what the implications are on a broader context. Okay, so Onscale is a simulation in the cloud solution, which means basically you access it through a browser. It can do structural analyses, pretty complex ones, fluid dynamics, electromagnetics, and actually they're expanding the types of physics that they support over time. Uses a variety of different methods, but primarily, finite element method. They have their own preprocessor, post-processor, and solvers as part of this solution, and it kind of has this this trend of applied intelligence where it will figure out what the right mesh size is and that type of thing. So that's the basics. The really interesting part about this is when it comes to the pricing or licensing model. So there is no license cost at all. There is no subscription cost at all. It is purely based on core hours, right? So it's a usage model, kind of a cloud-based usage model. So that's how you get charged for it. So if let's say you want to use 10 core hours, you could do one really complex analysis that takes 10 hours to run on one core, or you could run 10 variations on the design, like a design of experiments or an optimization type of thing. If you want to do that, you could look at 10 different designs that each take an hour to solve. Okay, so that's the usage model. It's based on CPU compute usage instead of licensing or subscriptions. Now, where it really gets interesting is this concept of simulation as a service. A lot of companies, they want to control the interface that sits on top of the underlying infrastructure of the simulation. The preprocessor, the postprocessor, that the setup and reviewing results. Onscale, they don't care. Literally, they're open to anyone putting their interface on top of it. So for example, they do have a partnership with Onshape, now acquired by PTC. But basically you are very soon, if not already, you're going to be able to run simulations from Onshape using the capabilities on Onscale. And based on their usage model, licensing, subscription costs, there is none. It's purely based on a compute usage type of model, right? So they don't care if it's through Onshape or through their own stuff. Where it gets even more interesting is truly treating it as a black box. So there are simulation automation workflows today. We've seen a number of these types of tools kind of come out where you can almost set up like a workflow diagram where the output of one simulation is the input to two other simulations. Maybe there's another input to the top one, and the outputs of those two kind of combine and are processed into a fourth one. A good example of that would be, figuring out the thermal gradient on a mechanical part and then applying coefficients of expansion to it based on that and figure out induced stresses, right? So Onscale supports that in that they can be the black box. You can call it, especially because it's a cloud service, you can call it remotely from almost anywhere and execute that and bring the results back and continue on with your automation. So that is interesting. Again, licensing, subscriptions, they don't care. It's a simulation as a service where they're worried about compute usage, not any of these other things. So it can kind of support that workflow automation type of model, which is very interesting. But what also is very interesting It can be worked into a system simulation, like a 1D system simulation, where a box in your system simulation goes out, executes the simulation, and comes back with results. It also starts to become pretty interesting with the digital twin and IoT data, or even test data, right? You can start to feed this thing IoT sensor data or test sensor data, let it run, and then get the results somewhere else, right? And you can even incorporate that into a digital twin type of initiative. So overall, this is a pretty interesting solution. I haven't quite seen anything like it as of yet, especially with the usage model. That kind of enables them to say, well, we don't care how you access it. Let it be a black box, right? I mean, that's a pretty big enabler. Also, it being in the cloud is another one where it can be called essentially from anywhere, whether it's Onscale, an IoT platform, even test management and test data management type of solutions. So there's a lot of potential there. And if you're an organization that likes to duct tape stuff together and be a pioneer and kind of make things work on your own to be innovative, it seems like a pretty interesting solution. It might make sense for you to check it out further. So Onscale. That's it. Take care and talk soon.